Hello everyone, it's Dava Haley Mitchell here, and I'm here with Nadira Ade.
Yes.
And I am so excited to be with you and also with all of you on International Women's Day.
Yay!
Yay! And it's really fun also to have an opportunity, since we have been engaging and I've been kind of messaging with many of you on Facebook related to the Inspiring Women with Soul dialogue, but we thought it was an important time to be live so we can answer your questions and we can celebrate together International Women's Day. And I just want to give you a brief little description of what we're going to be doing today. So Nadira and I will both be sharing about what we are each celebrating personally and collectively as women on this day. We'll also be talking a little about some of the challenges we're still facing as women and some of the work we all have cut out for us in the next few years. And then we're going to guide you into a little bit of a ritual space where we can really acknowledge the women in our lives, our mother lines, our ancestors, and also receive some messages and guidance about our own lives. And so we're first going to talk, and then we're going to go in depth and give you all some homework or home play to do in the next couple of days. So that's where we're going. So why don't you start? I know you said that there were some things you are really celebrating today as being a woman.
Yes. So I have been, I'm going to start with Black Panther.
Yes, I know. You were talking about how excited you are.
I've been so extraordinarily excited about it, just as a woman of color, as a woman, as somebody who has attended the movies to see Marvel films because my loved ones were excited about them. But to see the success of the film and to see the women who are portrayed in the film, dark-skinned Black women, women with agency, women who are advisors to the king, who is the protagonist. It's been really inspiring and motivating, and I keep telling my friends I need to figure out a way to get to Wakanda. So that's been really, it's been moving my heart, and it's been moving my heart as a mother to see my son's response to it as well. And then now this coming weekend, we're also really excited about A Wrinkle in Time with Oprah Winfrey and Ava DuVernay, who is I believe the director and the producer, and Mindy Kaling and Reese Witherspoon. So it seems like there are quite a few films that we're seeing coming out recently that have a feminist perspective or have a feminist voice, and also are featuring women of color in really positive and powerful roles.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And I'm gonna keep talking about films and media because I think it's an important topic. But I just wanted to let you all know we want you to really contribute to this conversation as well. And we have a page here where we can see your comments and your questions. So we'd also love to know, what are you each celebrating out there today on International Women's Day? If there's particular things that are really lighting you up and that you want to celebrate, please type it in the feed on this Facebook live chat, and so we can be aware of that and we can give you a shout out. And if there's questions or comments, please add those as well. But you brought up media, and I'm very fired up on this topic right now because I'm headed next week to the United Nations, where I'm helping convene a panel on women in the media and images of women in the media. And I think we're all aware that the images we see in the media really do shape consciousness in such a powerful way. And so to see those films that you just mentioned, and to see Wonder Woman be so popular, you know, I have to say I liked the film, but I felt still like her really short skirt and certain things to me still felt somewhat objectifying, that I was like, really? And it's still violent? Like, is there a time when we're not going to have so much violence as kind of the currency of how many films
That's a good point.
Operate? But yet, to see a powerful, strong woman who was a complex character and who had a lot of deep morality, I thought was really, really beautiful. And I think there's this trend now. There's so many more films. I have someone that is part of my family who was talking about he has been asked to, you know, specifically find the next big blockbuster, specifically with feminine heroines. And so, you know, that's, you know, a directive coming down from the top of a large agency, I think is very exciting. and the number of films, and also what I was excited about, I know we were just talking about the Oscars, and seeing that women were also really using the podium as a platform for advocacy, talking about Me Too, talking about Time's Up, the woman who won Best Actress, inviting
Frances McDormand.
Yes, inviting all the women to stand, and then saying, we've all got projects, we're all looking for financing, and so women getting comfortable taking a stand, using the power that they have.
Absolutely.
I remember a conversation I had years ago with Marianne Williamson, and she said, ladies, and I'll say this to you, she was saying, ladies, it's not about getting the power, it's about using the power we already have. And so I think there still are places where the power is definitely not balanced, but how do we use that power, and how do we, which is happening now, use the power that we have, use the spotlight that we have for social change. So
that reminds me of, there's this really beautiful book that I read some years ago called The 12 Tribes of Hattie, and one of the characters in the book says, we're not asking for freedom, and we're not getting free, we're taking free. We're taking our freedom. And I really like that idea, that we're not asking for permission, we're not waiting for someone to decide that now's a good time to share. Women are, depending on where we're located, we're 50% or more of a lot of the populations that we're in, and so we have the power to make some significant changes, and I've been really excited to see the things that women are speaking up and out about. I've also been really excited just thinking about platforms and who has the opportunity to speak and have their voices heard, about someone like Meghan Markle, who is marrying into the British royal family. And she's had a very kind of U.S. middle class, even upper middle class upbringing. And now she's using her voice and her position. She's said that she's a feminist. And she's spoken about Time's Up, and she's spoken about the things that we are all talking about. So I like the idea of her perspective coming in these very kind of in these very great kind of grand arenas, but she's speaking about something that's impacting a lot of people, and that was exciting to me as well.
And talking about the UK, I just saw a headline today that there is a International Women's Day flag flying for the first time in the UK today over Parliament, so that is really exciting. And so many other headlines today that I found exciting about women who are marching, and you said you saw one of the little clips about the women in Spain.
Yes, there was a live event that was taking place showing women who had who marched out. It was kind of in following with the 1975 Iceland women's strike. And so they were marching to demand equity and justice for women who are contributing to society, and to recognize the value of what it is that we contribute. And so I saw something that said, I think 5 million women, unions said that 5 million women walked out and participated in the marches, which is so amazing and exciting to think about.
Number.
Yeah,
that's a large number. And it's not just in Spain. I think it's happening all over the place today. I saw it in India, in Bangladesh, in many different places. And of course, here in the United States, we've had the women's marches that followed the inauguration of Trump, and then again in January here, and I was part of both of those, once pregnant. And
that's awesome.
But this space where women are feeling much more comfortable using our voices, using our power, and that especially inspires me in places like India and Bangladesh, where I imagine there's not as much of a cultural context to really support them doing that. And so I'm imagining it was probably somewhat risky for women in some of those places to be out doing those things, and yet they're choosing to do it. And I find that what I'm calling this fierce feminine aspect, or the feminine fire that is rising, and that more and more people are feeling courageous and bold and willing to use the power that we do have across the world.
Absolutely.
I think is something that we are really celebrating.
Yeah, it feels good. And I don't know. I just love that idea. I love the idea that we're coming together, and the idea of women's bodies in spaces. Women's bodies are so politicized and in so many ways seen as being accessible to a lot of people. So I also like the idea of women coming together and our bodies in a space being part of this statement that we belong to ourselves, and we recognize our power to make changes and to create shift. And this is what we want to see in the world. You know, I like that idea a lot.
I pulled my computer over because I just want to see your comments. If you are all writing it on the page, some of your comments or questions. I am not seeing any yet, though. Oops, I see that my Wi-Fi just, that's the problem with doing things live, is you have problems like Wi-Fi dropping off, but it'll come back in just a moment. So, okay, well, I will find this in the next few moments here. It's looking challenging. Let's also talk about, oh, here we go. Let's talk, you talked about the women's bodies, and I think that is, you know, I think there's such a power in all that's happening with the Me Too movement and Time's Up, but at the same time, the fact that, you know, it is so widespread is really, I think, a challenge. You know, it's good that it's coming to light, but the fact that it's happening still so much is really, you know, I mean, I found it shocking. I knew it was going on, but then to realize, you know, everyone I know feels like has some sort of story to share, which I think is, you know, hopefully something that's going to be shifting through time, and bringing awareness is a first major step. But you know, that just needs to change. Yeah. And I'm really honor the men who are out there. Maybe some of you are watching now, who have been part of the positive. You know, I think there's the possibility that this can become very polarizing. It is already polarizing, and there can be, you know, almost a war of the sexes. And I think that instead this is an opportunity to really acknowledge those men who are really supportive of women, and to, you know, invite them to continue to be our allies. And there are so many out there. So I just want to give a shout out to those men that are such strong allies and are supporting the women in your own lives and in your workplaces. And, you know, we need to do this together. None of us can do this alone.
You know, I feel really fortunate to have been able to attend the Wisdom 2.0 conference a couple weeks ago, and to hear Tarana Burke speak. Tarana Burke, the founder of the Me Too movement, and to see how things have really blossomed and flourished since the conversation was brought to light, or brought to greater mainstream awareness by celebrities and what was happening in Hollywood. But one of the things I really appreciated that she kept saying, because I went to three different events
with her.
Yes, because she was so amazing. But she was just talking about the importance of centering survivors in these conversations, and the fact that so many people, so many women, people in general, but definitely women, are survivors of some form of sexual harassment or sexual violence is really important and significant. And then to balance that, another speaker that I went to go see is Nadine Burke Harris, and she talks about
for people who don't know who she is.
She is a doctor who speaks about the impact of adverse childhood experiences. And she has a book that she's just recently published called The Deepest Well. But she has been speaking for years about the impact of these negative childhood traumas that we kind of carry through our lives with us, that can then impact our health and well-being. And then we can pass those traumas down in some respects in terms of our behaviors onto our children. And so I love the idea of bringing this consciousness that we're holding, and the thing that I've really been thinking about in my own life and in my own family is the power of gentleness and the power of kindness in our mothering and in how we speak with ourselves and how we interact within our groups and our communities, and what does that look like and feel like, you know, so that we can start really feeling the impact of healing, which is what so many of us are doing when we're doing our spiritual practices. And I love that women are the ones who are leading this movement in a lot of these spiritual communities and a lot of our classes. It's women who are really taking on the impact of healing for ourselves and then spreading it amongst our communities. So that feels really powerful and significant to recognize that we heal ourselves, we can contribute to healing our communities as well.
Yes. Thank you. And I'm keeping this on my lap because I really do want to include your comments and your questions. I'm not seeing anything yet, so please do comment. What are you celebrating here on International Women's Day? And I'd love if you have thoughts to contribute to what Nadira and I are talking about, please do give those, because we are paying attention. I'm just going to refresh my screen to make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay. Let's also talk about some of the challenges. I know as we were preparing, we were talking a little bit about the fact that women, at least in this country, are now more educated than men. College campuses are touting about 56% women, and there's a surge. And yet, at the same time, women, though more educated, are still on average earning about 15% less.
Yes.
And so that's, you know, been going on, getting better through time, but in addition to the pay gap, there are still such a lack of women at the highest ranks of business. We're obviously underrepresented in politics. Absolutely. Though, I have to say, since Trump has been elected here in the US, there are now thousands of women who are flocking to run for office. So I think that I'm celebrating that there's going to be a lot of new faces, at least here in the US, for running for office, and women are indeed taking action.
Yes.
So that to me is exciting, but the fact that we've been so underrepresented for so long is still a challenge. And I think, you know, what else do you still find challenging?
I think something that we're going to be seeing is, as women are stepping into more power in a variety of arenas, the entire way that things are done and even conceptualized is going to shift. So looking at the fact that I just read an article that said that a working woman, taking into account her duties in the office and her duties at home, a working mother works an average of 98 hours a week, which is ridiculous. And then also women are still generally carrying most of the emotional burden of making sure that everyone is taken care of, and that the process of how we get things done, we're the primary engineers of everything in our homes. And when we're holding all of that, it doesn't leave a lot of room for what wants to be created through us. And I've got some wonderful and amazing friends who are very clear that their missions, they came here in part to be mothers. And I think that's wonderful and excellent. And I know that that is not everyone's story and that's not everyone's experience. And so we need to have, even in our homes, more equity in how the work is divided, so that those of us who are striving to create what wants to be created through us can come through us. I believe it's also really powerful for children. My mother did this, and I feel as though it had a big impact on me, is that it's important for children to see their mothers happy and fulfilled and inspired and motivated, you know? And so I know my mother said that she often had courage to do things because she knew that my brother and I were watching her. But there's also the fact that sometimes I have courage to do things in my life because of what I saw her attempting and accomplishing. So that cycle, I think, really is something that needs to be held and recognized. And and acknowledged.
Yep.
You know?
I want to pick up on when you're talking about, you know, the working mother, because I was doing some research on this as well, and that, you know, for as much as women are really celebrating that women have, you know, so are playing such a large role in the workplace, as you were saying, there's a book that was out many years ago that I think it was called something like The Second Shift. And basically it's, you know, women have earned, you know, a much greater, so many, I mean, most of the women that I know are now working as well as being moms, or, you know, moms in different kinds of capacities, but that, as you were saying, you know, what has not shifted as fast as women entering the workplace, though it is shifting, but men really taking on a lot more responsibilities for raising the children or for taking care of the home. And I know for the women who are working moms that I know, it's really a struggle because there still are these very underlying expectations. It's certainly not said publicly, at least not within the circles that I'm part of, but there's this underlying expectation that you're the woman, of course you're going to spend more time caring for the children. And yes, you're still going to be you know, making the food. And again, you know, I can say in my own household, my husband is definitely, you know, doing a lot of those things that would have been very traditionally defined as a women's role, and he's taken off every Friday and taking care of our daughter, and you know, definitely sharing, getting groceries and cooking with me. But I know that that's not so common, and it is hard when you know, have a full day at work, and then you come day and have a full day at home, and to not have what I think is important for especially the feminine being and body is having rest spaces that are quiet, that are unfilled. And you know, I know that's just not part of my reality. The time I have childcare is now the time that I'm working, and so and it's expensive. It's like, it's not like I could really afford to not work very much. We do need two incomes for where we live here in California, and so it's a challenge. And I know many women, and many of you perhaps watching this, perhaps long to spend more time with your kids, and then there's this feeling of that traditional kind of guilt of like not doing as great of a job at work, not being able to be fully present for that, but also not as fully present at home. And so I think some of these age-old struggles are still very much alive today, and I don't see them being resolved, though people are finding, you know, much more creative ways to raise children, more in the village kind of environment where there's more people.
And I will say that I have a solid village.
You do.
My mother, between my mother and my in-laws, and you know, we're really fortunate that we have a lot of our family here with us, and so that's helpful. And that wasn't my mother's experience. She and my father both moved here from other places, and so they, it was just the two of them, and it does seem like that creates more of a burden on a family and on a household, and then that burden ends up being taken on more by a mother. And so, yeah, absolutely, the balance of how we're held. But I also really feel, Deva, that just the idea of practicing self-care and incorporating really healthy nurturing for ourselves is a very feminine way to think about doing our lives. You know, it's that's part of that entire paradigm shift that I think we're seeing. And you know, like, self-care, it's considered pampering, like an extra thing, as opposed to
I think it's a critical
it's a necessity for your well-being.
Especially if you're, you know, doing big projects in the world or working.
Or if you're responsible for keeping another person alive on a daily basis. You need time to recharge, you know?
Definitely. So, otherwise we become so depleted. And I think that is something that we're facing, is that women have been pushing so hard, and there's been a lot of epidemics like adrenal burnout, where women have just been going, and I think that's, you know, a big challenge. But giving ourselves and giving each other permission to do some of that self-care and take those spaces for the exhale, as I call it, is really central.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, we're going to be shifting very soon into doing a more of an inward process, but I want to just see if there's anything that you all might be saying. People are pretty quiet out there today, but if you don't comment while we're live, please do comment. Okay, there's a couple people. So Here is Carrie. Carrie is saying, a friend of mine and I have started a women's circle in our community. It's so powerful and so well received, so needed.
Yay.
Any advice on topics we can be discussing? Great. Well, I think some of the things that we've just been talking about today, I think great topics are what are you really celebrating in your life as being a woman? What's really challenging? I think oftentimes if people are not in women's circles, there can be the sense that we're challenged alone or we're suffering alone. And I think just opening up with people being willing to share about what is challenging them.
Yeah.
For example, if they're trying this balance between work for working mothers and raising a family. But the more people can bring those things out of the shadows and into the light of conversation, I think that that's something really powerful to discuss.
That makes me think of two things. One is the group of women that I get together with every year. We get together and talk about our goals for the coming year and what we want to see and create in our lives, and really hold one another accountable for remembering our greatness and our capacity to do wonderful things. So that's one thing. And then there was a series that I just saw recently that talks about how women initiated the movement to begin writing with National Magazine, and I can't remember the name of the show right now, but that came out of women's circles. A lot of them were getting together and speaking and recognizing that they had this common frustration that they were dealing with in terms of what they were being paid and what they were allowed to do and the level they were able to reach in their careers. And out of that came this whole movement that led to women being allowed to be journalists in their field. So, yeah.
Well, here's one resource I'll just offer. Women's circles, there's a woman who we had this year on Inspiring Women with Soul. She's also faculty at Shift Network. Her name is Jean Shinoda Bolin. She wrote a beautiful, very small little book called The Millionth Circle, but it's about running women's circles and has some great guidance. She's just talks about if you even just, bring in the sacred with something as simple as a candle, it can or a moment of silence or intention-setting meditation, something like that can really deepen the field and the conversation. I also really love taking things that are going on in the collective, for example, Valentine's Day or Halloween, and bringing a much deeper perspective. If Valentine's Day is not just a Hallmark holiday about romantic love, how do you, what is the true kind of love that we are seeking in our lives? How can we be the love that we're seeking, and take any of those holidays, instead of just Halloween being about, I know you love Halloween.
I love Halloween.
But instead of it just being about dressing up and goblins and ghosts, it's like, can you use it as an opportunity to also honor the grief and what's been lost, the people that have passed in the last year. So choosing these kind of cultural things and going deeper, I think, is a great topic too. There's a couple other ones, so I want to get into these. Shannon is saying, do you think we create our own suffering because we set our expectations too high in an unreasonable way? It still takes time to do even the simple tasks of life. And I feel that I am always running on full throttle. I definitely relate to adrenal burnout. So when you talked about your women's circles and the intentions you set, what do you think about this? Are we setting them too high?
No. Well, it's a balance, because I know I have times where I feel like I go through the day, like I think about it like this, like I'm running and leaning at an angle the entire time. And that's part of why I've had to incorporate meditation throughout my day. So when I take the time to pause and I listen to an inspiring talk, even if it's just a few minutes, or I do a guided meditation, even if that's just a few minutes, and then I feel myself kind of coming back into myself, and then I'm able to drop in. I will say that when I felt the most that I was at capacity in terms of what I was able to do and accomplish in a day, I had to go see somebody. I went and started seeing an acupuncturist on a monthly basis. And she was doing her work, but she also would just put me on the table, and it was quiet time to myself where I could take a nap. And
Yep.
so
I was doing that on a weekly basis.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
we have to take it wherever we can find it. And it's not, I mean, so I will say also that my experience of going to the gym has helped me learn this, because I would sometimes feel afraid to set a goal, because what if I don't meet it? And what if then it's something I've failed at? Whereas I've shifted my thinking to just having the perspective that the attempt and the striving and the inspiration and excitement I derive from that is already a success. And then if I don't accomplish it this time, that's fine. I can keep working for it. Or I can realize I'm not that motivated and I don't want to keep putting energy towards that and direct my energies elsewhere. So it's a balance, but definitely being gentle with ourselves. But if there's something that we really, really dream of for our lives, I don't think we need to pull back from that.
Well, here's what I'd say. In addition to what you're saying, I can relate to this very much, because so many of the people speaking to Shannon, but to all of you, so many of the women that I coach are kind of like you. It sounds like they're a bit burned out, they're overwhelmed, they have these big visions and then feel like they fall short at times. And what I've said to a lot of my clients, which is the same thing I would say to you, Shannon, is don't not have the dream, but you might need to adjust your timelines. Because I think what happens when women are kind of in an overachieving mode, especially if you have children at home, is we have all these visions and dreams, and then we think it all needs to happen like this year, or even this in the next couple of months. And I know I've driven myself crazy, and I kind of set myself up for failure, because I bit off more than I could chew and still have the quality of my life be high. And so what I found really helps is to take these visions and dreams and put them on a longer time horizon. Give myself like 10 years. In the next 10 years, what do I want to accomplish? And then see what is most appropriate for this year or for these couple of months. Like, for example, I've had an album that has been done sitting on my hard drive for over a year now. And I could beat myself up and say, like, why hasn't this album come out? But I got pregnant, I had a baby, I'm running the summit, I have a new course that's coming up, the Feminine Fire Empowerment course is coming up. And so I've just had to stretch my horizons and say, okay, it's done. And at some point this year, once this summit and everything is over in the fall, it can come out. But it's been done, ready to roll for a long time. And with my clients too, if we can just stretch those time horizons where things are still important, they're still happening, it's just they might not be happening like this month. Absolutely. And that's okay. Because if we want to have a high quality of life and not be burning ourselves out, we need to give ourselves permission to have a little bit more ebb and flow.
Yes.
And when things are really full on, it's not the time to be just piling more and then, lashing ourselves for not accomplishing everything. So.
It reminds me of so if we think of our projects that we're creating as babies, it reminds me of that period right after you have a baby where, especially if you are someone who's used to accomplishing a lot on a to-do list in a day, then suddenly you've done 3 things and you have to be content with those 3 things. You kept the baby alive, you kept you alive, and one of them is you ate a meal.
You showered. My big goal.
Yes. So it's that I like that idea of adjusting our timelines and knowing that also sometimes I have a friend who used to talk about how even when it feels like you aren't moving forward, like there's internal work that's happening, and internal like kind of churning and shifting and exploring and all of that, So, and it's a very feminine thing to ride the ebb and flow. Yeah. And so holding those and being kind with ourselves.
Yes. Let's just get to a couple more of these here, because I can see there's a bunch of you. Let's see. Chogyup is saying, how do you think the Me Too movement will impact DC political leadership? By the way, I'm celebrating today by meditating on seeing a world with no discrimination. Thank you, Chogyup. Beautiful to hear from you. And how will the Me Too movement impact DC political leadership? I mean, I certainly hope so. Every time I think, I will say I've been so disappointed, though, every time I think that, we can't get any worse in DC. Then I read the headlines the next day, and it seems like we're in a downward spiral right now related to politics, at least here in the United States. Yeah. But what I mentioned before about the number of women that are running for office, I think there's been the recognition for so long that much more women are needed in office, and yet women haven't chosen to run. And there's a lot of reasons why women wouldn't choose to run. When you look at how women who do run for office are treated and are often taken down and criticized, not just for their politics, but for the ways that they're dressed, their voice, all kinds of things. I think that what happened with the Me Too movement is women have gotten so fed up, and seeing what's going on is so unnerving that many more people are running for office, and those that are in office are also hopefully paying a lot more attention. I think Trump is his own category of doesn't seem to be paying much attention. I saw something about the women's marches. He thought that the women were out there marching, like celebrating him or something. Like, I don't know. That was
Let
very
him
disturbing.
keep thinking that
That
while
was
the
disturbing.
revolution happens around him.
That's right. That's right. We've got another one. This is Wendelin. Wendelin saying, this is an uncomfortable topic, but can we as women dive deeper into an inquiry about status and a loss of status that men may be experiencing as women rise throughout the world? That's a really important point, Wendelin. How do we consciously address this experience of loss and the human perspective of power being a zero-sum game? Let me just read that again. How do we consciously address this experience of loss and the human perspective of power being a zero-sum game? How can the sharing of power be more conscious and synergistic? I think this is really important that you're bringing up, Wendelin, because I think that is a lot of what did fuel the win of Trump here, is that there's a lot of men and white men and who felt that they are losing their power, and people who are traditionally in power, it's a privileged status. And I mean, especially as being a white woman too, white people like having this position of power. And when you lose power, there's an adjustment that needs to happen. And I think we really do need to do that consciously. And I think, in my world, it's so beautiful to see what's happening now, and that there's so many people of color that are standing in power, and that things are shifting because it's been unbalanced and it needs to happen. Yeah. And yet, in general, people feel uncomfortable with change. And so I think, starting to even have these kinds of conversations, I know there's conversations in the circles that I'm happening with, but I think more probably conscious conversations between women and men. And I think some men, don't know how to respond, they feel a bit at a loss and haven't found new ground and new footing. And so...
But I also don't think it's our responsibility to fix that for them.
No.
There are some
I think they can meet with each other.
Yeah, there are some amazing men that are doing work explicitly looking at what is the role of men in this shifting society. And I really honor and celebrate the work that they're doing, because it's a vulnerable position to be in. And it's interesting that even some of their approaches have more of the feminine kind of feel and tone to it.
Is there any men that you can think of that you'd want to give a shout out to?
There's a man who I'm thinking of right now, and of course his name is not coming to mind.
Okay.
But he does work explicitly. When you look at the next person, I'll see if I can pull him up really quickly. But he looks at what is the role of men in this society, and I think also it's a powerful thing, and it's significant that we have compassion for the impact of this shift that's happening on all of us, because it is uncomfortable. But I personally choose to focus my attention on how I'm raising my son, and how I'm teaching him to hold power, and then I like the idea of just kind of holding a centered openness with the process that men who are struggling with what they perceive as a loss of their power, it's not a real loss of power. It's just power over other people they don't get to have anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Which
There's a group that I haven't done, I don't know exactly what their work is, but I'm going to be presenting on a panel when we're in New York. For those of you in New York, we're coming to New York next week. And on, I believe it's the 14th, I think that's Wednesday night, there's going to be a panel that includes a few men and a few women, but one of the men is one of the faculty from Shift Network. His name is Mark Matusik, and he is the co-founder, along with Eve Ensler, of V-Day Men. So V-Day is Eve Ensler's organization that is about ending violence for women, against women, and really inviting women to rise up. And his organization, V-Day Men, I'm really curious what they're up to on this topic. And I also want to shout out to another woman. We are co-producing some events in New York with her organization. This is Jen Siebel-Newsom, who's married to the Lieutenant Governor of California, Gavin Newsom. She has a very powerful film about men and the challenges they face, especially young men and boys, and the ways that they are taught to basically not be emotional creatures, to be divorced from their emotions, to man up, be tough, and how they're kind of sculpted in a way that's not really natural and is painful for many young boys and men. And I believe that movie is called, it's either I think it's The Mask We Wear or The Mask You Wear. I think it's The Mask You Wear.
Oh, is it on Netflix?
Probably. We're going to be showing it at our film festival in New York next week as well. But anyway, I think it's a tender time for men, but I think some of the best allies for men are each other.
Yes.
In this.
And the person that I was thinking of is Jed Diamond from menalive.com. And he does work around healing aggression and depression in men.
Okay. Great. So I think that we've addressed a lot of the questions and comments. These are really wonderful. So here's just a couple, actually the questions, but some of the comments. We've got Brigitte, hello from Heidelberg. I'm so inspired, moved. What is happening? I'm proud to be with you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. It's nice to hear you.
I enjoyed my time in Heidelberg.
Heidelberg's awesome. Also love Heidelberg. Allison, I know of a project called Tira, called Art to Healing, empowering women who've been through trauma caused by sex trafficking in Nepal and Thailand. Thank you. Yeah, we have been big advocates of supporting the ending of sex trafficking here at Shift Network. It's one of the main causes that we're focused on, and we usually every year have focused on an organization that is supporting the end of sex trafficking. Last year we had Apniap, a woman named Ruchira Gupta, in dialogue with Alice Walker, talking about their experience in India, and we were supporting that organization. This year, we've decided to shift our focus because of what's been going on in Puerto Rico, and so we are this year, if you choose to buy the upgrade package, if you missed any of the recordings and you'd like to own them, you can, I think it's Inspiring Women with soul.com/upgrade. If you choose to buy that upgrade package, it supports our ongoing proceedings and the ability to produce these kinds of events that we offer for free, but also a percentage of the proceeds will be going to support a beautiful project in Puerto Rico that's helping for the rebuilding after the hurricanes. Okay, Artemis, aloha from Hawaii. I'm celebrating this joyous day by watching some powerful women. That's us and you and many different women out there. She's going to follow up the day listening to all of the dialogues. She said it's been like drinking from a fire hose, but such a delicious, nurturing fire hose it has been. This is new for me. I thank you for sending it out to the world. Susanna, good evening from Salzburg, Austria. Thank you for this summit. I feel supported and surrounded by sisters. Thank you for sharing, for all the feminine wisdom, for all the authenticity and vulnerability. Thank you that you are. Good evening from Frankfurt, Germany. What a wonderful summit. What a wonderful topic. How fun to hear all these sisters from Europe. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in with us here. So I'm noticing the time, and I think we're probably going to want to wrap this up in the next 15 minutes or so. So I think we're going to shift our focus and move inward. We have a little more ritual process that we wanted to take you through as a way to really honor this day and to go, as I said, inside. So if you are in a safe place to do that, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And you can take a few deep breaths. We've been operating at a high, fast pace, a lot of excitement, I know, brewing in my being right now around all of this and being connected. But just slowing down, and I'm going to invite you to shift your attention to the space of your womb. And I know women are in different realities. Some of you may not have a physical womb, if you had a hysterectomy or other things happen in this area, but in the space that would occupy the womb space. And you might even put a hand there, just to bring your awareness there. And bringing your awareness to your umbilical cord. This cord that at once connected you to your own human mother. And as we start speaking about mother, I'm just going to invite you, Nadira, to speak the names of your mother line.
Absolutely. And so as I do this, I just take a moment and let my awareness kind of touch each of them, but I am not calling them into the space. I am Nadira Ade, who is the daughter of Laura Denise, who is the daughter of Elzola, who is the daughter of Alberta, who is the daughter of Estelle, who is the daughter of Dora, who is the daughter of Georgiana, who is the daughter of a woman whose name has been lost to history. And I honor them.
So as you hear those names in that beautiful recitation by Nadira, I invite you to invoke and honor your own mother line, and perhaps silently saying to yourself the name of your own mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, her mother, however far back you are aware of or you know the names. In my own personal life, I do not know the names of the women beyond my grandmother, as I never even knew her. She died before I was born. So I want to invite you to imagine that behind you, as if you're sitting in the lap of your mother or a mother figure. Doesn't have to be your biological mother, but someone that you feel really has supported you and nurtured you and held you in your life. Imagine that you are sitting in her lap and that you are being supported by a long lineage of women who came before you. Either women who are in your own biological line or women who have been soul allies in other ways. Perhaps some of these women behind you are women that have inspired you, that you haven't even known on a personal level. Mm-hmm. But just collecting the support from all these women and just taking a moment to really breathe in this felt sense of support for who you are as a woman in your life today.
And if you can also feel your place in the center of this long line, this journey, seeing the women who extend out before you, whether that's actual physical daughters or if it's women whose lives you have touched, if it's creations that you've made that have touched others, that have inspired others, if it's something that is moving in you that you feel is ready to come through you and have an impact on others in the world when they view it or experience it. Sometimes it's just you being you, healing and moving through spaces, bringing others into alignment and harmony with your loving and empowered and creative vibration. Just feel your own wonderfulness right here in this space. Your own blessedness, the magic of you. And see if there's something that arises, an impulse, a desire, a dream, an inspiration for an action that you would like to take today or at some point as we continue through this month of honoring women's history. If there's a commitment that you can make for yourself, even if that commitment is to make no more commitments, if it's to make more space for your breath, more space for relaxation, more space to recharge, so that when you go out into the world, when you are interacting with others in your home, you are full and you are nourished. Just let yourself fill up and be full. Let your breaths be deep. Let your mind be at ease. Right now, give yourself the space. There's nothing that you have to accomplish. The lists will wait. The tasks will wait just for a moment. And know that every time you take care of yourself, you are giving yourself what you need to be more effective and impactful with whatever it is that you're doing for others, because we're all always doing for others. So let yourself have this time, feeling your feet on the ground or on the floor, feeling the energy of the earth moving up through your ankles, and your shins and calves, and all the way up through your legs, pooling in the cauldron of your pelvis, moving upward, filling your torso, and pooling in your heart, your beautiful, loving, feminine heart, filling up, moving outward through your throat into the world and the words you speak, overflowing down your arms, reaching upward and outward toward the sky as you inhale and exhale, and breathe. And feel your power. Feel the power of your impact. Feel your fear. And know that you have faced fear before, and you've come out the other side, and you can do it again, and you will. And just keep breathing into this space. Feeling the energy moving around you. Your lungs filling with air, breathing the air that ancestresses have breathed before us.
And as you feel your power, also noticing your power to honor and acknowledge others. And just seeing if they're, in this moment, allow yourself to receive images of some of the women who have most inspired you in your life, who have most touched you in your life. Either people that you may personally know or people that you have watched from afar. Some may be alive, others may have passed over or lived years ago. But as part of your commitment, see if you are willing to select a number of these women, the ones who are still walking this earth, and choosing to actually honor them with a phone call or a text message or a letter. We have the power to celebrate each other, to lift each other up, to help fill each other's cups. So as you fill your own cup, may it fill to overflow. Mm-hmm. And may some of that overflow be used to celebrate your other sisters and let them know so many of us make a huge difference in ways we don't even know to others. So make your quiet appreciation known on this day. Call at least one other woman that has impacted your life. And if you can make space over the next week, honor one or more women each day, and you will totally make their day by knowing that they made a difference and continue to make a difference in your life. And then finally, seeing if there is one spirit being, could be an ancestor or some other being that you like to commune with, and just allow this spirit being to offer you a message and a reflection on the woman that you are in this life. Any sort of message of encouragement for your own journey. Just let yourself be surprised who shows up. You may see the person, you may just feel them, you may get a more wordy message, or it could just be a color or an image. Just allow the invisible to speak to you in whatever way. And just taking a few minutes of quiet and silence for that to unfold.
And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes and rub your hands together. Feel your body, this body that holds and houses our spirits every day.
Yeah.
And return to this space.
That was good.
That was really good.
That felt nice. Well, thank you all. We would love to, if you would share on our Facebook feed anything that happened for you interesting during this little meditation. If you got messages that you're willing to share or commitments that you want to make visible with our community, we'd love to receive those live with us, and those listening to the recordings. We'll keep monitoring the feeds so we can be holding you in your visions and your dreams. And on behalf of Shift Network, I want to thank you for being a part. If you were a part of our Inspiring Women with Soul series, you can still listen to the replays for another 48 hours of those sessions that happened today. And we have the intention to keep this community alive. We have more programming that'll be coming sporadically, and just want to honor you. Thank you. This was so fun to co-create with you today.
Yeah, it's a sweet way to honor International Women's Day.
Yes, and to all of our international sisters, thank you for writing in from around the world. Thank you for the lights that you each are in your own community. And if there's specific questions, you can keep those coming, or feedback you have about how we can continue to create programming that really serves you in your own life. We are all ears, always wanting to find better ways to serve this global community of women. So thank you all, and thank you.
Thank you.
And we are signing off.